afternoon, one and all. My name is Ayumi Kurogane of the Excalibur server of Final Fantasy XIV. You may also know me from the Lore Lines podcast. I am a fan of Drakengard, a fan of NieR, and a fan of pretty much every Final Fantasy game ever imagined. Today, I have with me Shadowmeowth, also from the Lore Lines podcast, who will be joining me in talking about NieR and Drakengard and 14 and how they are kind of all similar, related, and the tie-ins with each of them. So go ahead and say hi, Meowth.
Hello, I'm Shadowmeowth, the self-proclaimed creator of quirks. I'm a concept artist, hero crafter, and long-time fan of the Drakengard NieR-verse, as well as Final Fantasy. Of course, in this case, Final Fantasy XIV, and today we're going to discuss the implications for both games in the Yorha Dark Apocalypse crossover. So let's go.
Right on. So, oh gosh, where to start? So, let's talk about the NieR raids themselves. They were just released, the last part of the NieR series in 14. Yoko Taro, Yosuke Saito were guest creators on this, and the Tower of Paradigm's Breach was the final part of the NieR series. They started out with Copied Factory, a reference to NieR Automata, the Puppet's Bunker, another reference to NieR Automata, and that's now the Tower, another reference to NieR Automata. The Automata references obviously are a big thing, very prominent. However, they did pepper in a few other references from several games in this series that Taro and Saito have both been included on before. Most prominently, the NieR Gestalt and Replicant games, and also the Drakengard series, which is a kind of, how do you say, almost like a cult classic, cult hit. Not very many people knew about them over in the States. They were more popular in Japan than they were here, I'd say. Mouth, you want to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of interesting. I came to know the Drakengard series actually because one of my friends for a long time on Twitter knew of NieR and Drakengard, and it was the time that was announced that Drakengard 3 was coming. It was like, of course, my friend was quite excited about this, and I was like, well, I don't know what's this thing about, but she still told me a lot about of that.
Of course.
And because of that, I kind of went into it, and that's how I came to know this. I mean, right now it's of course getting more visibility because of NieR Automata, but back then it was kind of an obscure cult games, both the Drakengard series and NieR.
They were strange first and foremost.
And to furthermore, in Spain, none of these games until Replicant right now have been translated. So that was kind of even a more big deal to find these games for me.
Right. And over here, I mean, they had their own titles for like the PS2 and PS3. I don't think there's been one released for the PS4 yet. We can only hope. Maybe one for PS5 will be coming down the line eventually. Drakengard itself was a very, very gritty series. I would say more so than even Automata. Automata kind of touched on more philosophical things, such as like, right or wrong, or should I do this or should I do that, or are we the bad guys or are we not? Drakengard showed that there is really Yoko Taro. It basically showed that Yoko Taro is not afraid to say that there are no happy endings no matter what route you go down. There is nothing that you can say or do that will change the outcome of this and that on a specific branch, yada yada. It was a very, and considering also that they had multiple branches, multiple endings for each game, labeled of course A through Z, depending on which game you played. There could be anywhere between 4 endings and 26.
Yeah. I mean, yes. Well, if you're done.
Go ahead.
Yes.
If I'm done.
Yeah. I mean, one first has to understand Yoko Taro's way to tell stories and what were his motivations first. Of course, we need to start talking about Drakengard, because it's from Drakengard 1 that the NieR spin-off branches. So I still remember this because I did some research when I was preparing my final degree project. That was a short video game RPG maker demo, and one of my reference was Yoko Taro, because I like his style of writing, the backwards writing.
Yes.
Because Yoko Taro first writes the ending and the whole plot line from, he knows where it wants it to lead, and the whole story is built that from the end, basically. And Yoko Taro, I recall one interview when he said, I was playing video games and I didn't actually understand how the main character who kills people and stuff is always regarded as the good guy, and why you should be rewarded for killing people. So that's basically basically his reasoning was only a crazy man with no morals could actually walk down this path, and that's when we get Cain, of course.
Of course, yeah.
But that's the beginning of, that's actually the first kind of stone cast on Yoko Taro's work. That's Drakengard, and I mean it's kind of coherent in the sense of, in Drakengard 1 you unlock the endings as you kill more and more and more people. Of course, there's no happy endings. Each ending, it means you kill more, and if it's going to be a punishment instead of a reward, you know?
And they even had joke endings too. Like, it wasn't just like every ending was like either canonical or non-canonical. Some of those endings actually were a joke thrown in by Taro and some of the developers, and somehow they ended up being, what, did they get considered canon, or were they just popular?
Yeah, I mean, Death by Fish, I remember from Automata.
Yes.
But yes, yeah. Yeah, I agree that Automata was more, because even NieR Replicant Bar Gestalt is... I actually remember some streamers saying, hey, how many people have died in the whole... And they are speaking about branch A. Like,
right.
You're in for a ride, and they were saying, how many people are we lost in well, during all of this? And I was like, and Automata is kind of follows the trend, but it kind of leans more in the existentialist philosophy. Then again, I guess it's I mean, obvious, because we are speaking about androids. They're machines that basically trying to emulate humans, which is basically what the machine life forms already they are trying to do as well. And there's a reason for that too, actually, that they're not that different.
They are not, no. And I think that brings us on to our next topic. Basically, what's really NieR Automata's context and its quote-unquote canon ending. So its canon ending can be kind of speculated, but it's the general consensus is usually canon ending number or letter E, which is basically after getting endings C and D, the credits begin to kind of flicker in and out, and the pods will start rebuilding 9S, 2B, and A2 with their memories all intact, and then it just kind of slides over to A2 sitting next to an open window with a dove. It's about as happy as you can get, but we all know that Taro probably omitted the part where they get stabbed to death at the next scene.
I mean, that's. Do you know about the epilogue novel about Automata in this ending? It has two possible branches.
Go for it. Let's hear about them.
You know, there's, of course, you see in the in-game, you see the pods are going to build to be a 9S and A2. And the novel, there's a short novel that has two possible endings. The bad ending is that something's wrong with 9S at the time of trying to rebuild him, and 2B is heartbroken at this, and she stays at this same spot, never moving his side until she decays as well over time and decades, centuries, stuff. Because she's a machine.
Right.
And the good ending, of course, is 9S is kind of is happily reformed. He works, and to be a 9S A2. They have to live in this world and stuff, but I mean that's actually the best ending Yoko Taro given his main character, so it's fine, even if it's a novel.
Right.
So yeah, basically it's kind of a confirmation that ending A and ending E is the canon one, sort of, and that as far as we know, 2D, 9S, and A2 were fine, and they were in their world doing knows what.
And let's also kind of look back at. Let me pull this up here. Sorry.
I have to say, if I may,
Go ahead.
That you pointed out that when in ending E we see A2. It was kind of, you said there's a dove, and I was like, yeah, dove. Why does that? Oh, well, that's because the disciples in Drakengard 3 were actually fucking doves.
Right.
It's like, I don't know if it means anything. It's just that.
For all we know, and it could just very well also be just a a cameo reference, just like a certain thing that we'll get to later on.
Yeah.
Anyways, yes. So going on to the setting of Yorha, the Dark Apocalypse. So the story behind that is there are two twins, Anod and Konog, who approach us with a kind of a bit of a discovery. They discover a copied factory, behind the mountain in Calusia. And the Dixite chief, of course, is not very happy that they are kind of running around doing things without his permission. So, do you want to add to this, Meowth?
Yeah, it's kind of this of how Dark Apocalypse it was. From a franchise crossover standpoint, Yorha Dark Apocalypse is the sequel to NieR Automata. So even if people in 14 are complaining that the NieR Automata crossover doesn't fit, I guess fair, but not exactly right.
Right.
So for reasons that we will explain later. But yeah, that's basically a sequel to basically ending E. But it turns out it happens in the first, for reasons we're going to discuss as well. And so yes, basically, there's this finding in the Durgar mountains in Russia, and the dwarves of Komura have found it. So they don't know what the hell it is, but these twins, Anog and Konog, are so they're so
They're intrigued
they
by it.
want, yeah, they're quite intrigued. They're kind of a mischief makers, but really intelligent, and they want get in there. Uh, uh, what by whatever means necessary, and of course, whatever means necessary means the word of light.
Right, they call on us, and then it's really we kind of almost act as their chaperone into the copy factory itself. We are approached by the android 2P. We actually find her, not approached, but actually we find the android 2P in an unresponsive state. Or was it? Is it outside of the copied factory? I can't remember.
Yeah, it's she's outside. She's kind of trying to. There are kind of three machine life forms. Stubby one trying to whack her, but there's a shield enveloping her comatose for. And Anog and Konog, well,
They kind of take care of her pretty much until she.
No, I was going to say that they throw some bombs to the stubbies, and then it's when we first meet this android in white that is 2P.
Now, normally, 2P is not. It's not normally. She's not normally a main character. It's the actual design process behind 2P is that 2P stands for second player in the Soul Calibur series. 2P is actually the second costume available for 2P. And it is also a color scheme used in several other places, several other games as well, featuring 2P. It's just an alternative color scheme that they use. So going into go ahead.
No, it's just that yeah, that's the origin of 2P. But in this game, the acronym takes a
very different turn. Yes. So going into the start of it, we have 2P. As far as we know, is on our side. As far as we know at this point, is on our side. We enter the copied factory with her. Destroying the machine life forms along the way. We meet up with the android 9S, which, for those of you who have played Automata, you know him from there, and begin to question why he's attacking us when he's supposedly supposed to be on, our side and is piloting some kind of machine life form. So it's just confusing.
It's kind of confusing because if I may.
Go ahead.
Kind of confusing at the time. I recall reading the speculation back in 5.1. Yes. I recall the speculation going about is this 9S having been consumed by the logic virus, being part of the machine life forms? He's still on his rampage about 2B because there's a lot of you remember the corpse room that later comes up in Puppets.
And you had to check to see if his eyes were red or not, but they weren't.
Yeah. And there's this fight between 2P and 9S. She cuts the visor, and we see that his eyes are actually not red. That means he's free from the logic virus. We'll speak of the implication of this later, but as far as we know, he's clean. So Anog and Konog afterwards they return to the copied factory. They want to see if they can find something to reanimate 2P, who has fallen into a stasis state, and they find that 9S has climbed up all the way from where he fell, and Anok decides to take 9S into custody, unbeknownst to 2P, so they keep him a secret.
And from there, the story almost takes a very, almost confusing turn, but it also takes a much darker turn as well. Moving on into the Puppet's Bunker story, we actually see the Dwarven village getting ready to celebrate one of their festivals. And we see the android 2P return and begin to show her true colors as she calls in an airstrike on the village itself. And just as they are about to leave, or just as she's about to finish off, one of the dwarves, 2B, arrives and begins to engage her. They run off, of course, and this is when we first meet 2B, the real kind of protagonist of this story, besides Anok and Konog at this point. We still have 9S in custody. We rescued him. I'm not sure whether it was 2P or us that rescued 9S, but we got him.
That was us. The purpose, Anok actually said, we're going to keep this from 2P a secret. Because basically at that point, Anok and Konog mostly wanted to study 9S.
So we have him kind of kept to the side a bit and kept that away from 2P. But we see 2B come back into the fold here. And we see that the Puppet's Bunker, which our next area is available, that we go into. For those of you who have played NieR Automata, a bunker is basically a space station that the androids operate on, and was a base of operations for the humans on the moon. They have somehow crash landed that onto the mountains of Colusia. So, good job, pilot.
I would say, it's not exactly that they had managed to, well, it's kind of spoilers, but it's not, later it's revealed, it's not that the bunker crashed from space into the mountains of Colusia. It's more complicated. But in the end, in NieR Automata, we actually saw in Brand C, I think it was, the bunker fell from the sky. So, yeah.
And you begin to wonder, too, like, if it did crash land, why wasn't it seen beforehand? 1, and 2, when it crashed, it would have made an incredible noise for it to be that huge.
Yeah.
So you have to wonder, too, then, what was it? Did it crash land? Or was it transported here?
They're the same as the Yorha units that there were inside and appeared that at first they wore the black uniform, but 2P kind of transformed into white garb androids, and that's when we know, and that's when they get the because the Yorha units have a letter that is the first letter of their function. That, for example, 2B, it's kind of, if I remember, is Yorha number 1 type B because it's a battle android, and 9S is Yorha number 9 type S because he's a scanner, and here the whole Yorha units get the letter P. That Ayumi may tell you what P stands for.
It stands for second player, but it's another. It stands for something else too, which its name escapes me. It's constantly.
Really? It's in the raid's name.
Uh, Puppet's bunker. Puppet. Stands for puppet. You're right. That's right. Thank you for correcting me on live air.
Really?
I
thought it was obvious.
Not really, but you know me.
It's fine. The joys of live stream.
Exactly. So with that out of the way, so we enter the bunker and we get to see all of these white androids, which we are not used to seeing. We're used to seeing black garbed androids. Now, the black and the white motif is a very, we'll say, prominent staple throughout the series, throughout NieR, throughout Drakengard. It started in Drakengard and then kind of moved from there. In Drakengard 1, the dragon Angelus at the end was able, in ending, I think it was E. It was E. When you fought the Queen Beast, you actually sent out white and black waves to counter her singing, quote unquote. And that's where the whole white and black motif color scheme kind of started from. And it just really has just been a kind of a theme. White and black, I guess you could say almost good and evil. And so when you're going through the Puppet's Bunker raid, you see kind of familiar faces like the operator on the third boss, the operator from the Yorha NieR Automata Puppet's actual bunker.
That was 210.
210, yeah, 210, yeah.
That 210, yeah. Sorry, I was 21.
After that, you kind of go down a long hallway, a long blue hallway, into this big wide open area. For those of you who haven't played NieR Automata, that place is actually the staging ground where you fight Adam and Eve. And you find out...
An alien ship.
It is an alien ship, yes. You actually find out about the aliens there too, in NieR Automata. You come across a dead alien, and you are approached by Adam and Eve, who tell you that the aliens are dead and the machine life forms are the only ones left on the planet. So after a very strange fight with the Legion from Castlevania and a giant 2P made up of tons...
That's actually a rather appropriate name you gave that thing.
Legion?
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of what it looks like.
I mean in regards to NieR, because of we'll get there later.
We will. And going to her second form, the giant amalgamation of puppets formed into the image of a giant 2P. I mean, what else could you fight? Just a dozen, 3, 4, 5, 6 dozen puppets, or one giant 2P? I also love the music for her too.
Yeah, I mean the combination heaven and the Dark Colossus.
The Dark Colossus, yep, the Dark Colossus destroys all, torn from the heavens. Dark Colossus is actually a musical theme starting from. I think it's from NieR. The original NieR Gestalt and Replicant, because it was.
It is. I think it is Jack of Hearts battle theme.
It was, yes, the Dark Colossus. Yep. So, and because it's not Shadow Lord, it's definitely not Shadow Lord. He has his own theme.
No. The Shadow Lord is.
He has his own theme.
I actually wanted that for last the last boss of the whole raid series, but I'm not complaining about what we got.
Of course. After that, we kind of move on into a kind of like a slower kind of. It's. I wouldn't actually, no, I wouldn't even say slower. After that, you kind of find out a revelation almost, because there's a cutscene afterwards where you find that Anog actually isn't alive and is actually a copy of the body that was left behind. Basically, to kind of summarize, Anog and Konog were discovering the caves beneath the mountains of Calusia, and Anog was killed in a cave-in. Ironically, she died next to something that is a very dangerous and controversial object in the NieR and Drakengard universe that looks like, well, for those that aren't aware of it, probably just looks like a white orb or a giant snowball. To those that are aware, it looks like the Seed of Resurrection, aka the Seed of Destruction. As we all know from Drakengard 1 and Inuart's crowning act of idiocy, we know that it is a bad idea to have any kind of contact or do anything near that thing. But, I mean, it couldn't be helped. I mean, Anog died right next to it, so the seed kind of just copied her body and out popped a new Anog. So
I mean, it could have gone. It could have gone much time, not 10,000 times wrong. That it went, you know.
I mean, yeah, Anog could have fallen into it, and we all know how that went.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. That's not about. That's yeah. No.
We won't go down that route.
We don't want that.
No,
So, yeah.
no. R.I.P. Fourier. So
yeah.
Go ahead and throw
basically-
some down.
Huh? What?
You can go ahead and talk.
Oh, okay. No, it's just simply. Konog finds the copy. The copy speaks in angelic language, and Konog, of course, was too distressed to notice. And then the copy kind of that's redundant. Copies Konog's memories to know who he is and who she kind of is, and that's when she says his name. And apparently everything goes like normal because she's got. That's interesting. She's got Anog's personality and the background of who she is through Konog's memories. That's kind of interesting. Leaving that for the second book.
Of course. And so after that, after you find out that you're basically walking around with one alive dwarf and one dead copy dwarf. I mean, no, I won't go there. So, we.
I mean, that was kind of I mean, just sorry, but that description was like, oh god, Zero.
Hi, Zero. We love
Hi,
you.
Zero. Yes.
You're out there somewhere. Anyway, moving on to the Tower of Paradigm's Breach. So this was something I did not expect for the raids to go for the direction that they were going to go towards. I thought that they were going to go a little more archaic and a little bit stranger. But instead, we get the ending to the NieR Automata. and we get to go basically inside. We didn't go inside 9S's mind, but the area that we go into is the exact same.
You mentioned actually going to something archaic. That's kind of an interesting thing that I over a number of reruns of paradigms breach, because alters. Uh, I kind of realized that we in the last part of the last part of raid is kind of the last part of NieR Automata. That's the most recent timeline. Well, that's the latest one,
Yes.
But as we go into the game, there's kind of a something there, but I think it has an explanation. As far as bosses go, the main bosses, not the extra ones, because then I would have to mention the beetle robots, and that's a break of the tendency. But as far as bosses go, we first fight inside the machine networks. Inside the machine network, we fight a copy of the Jack of Hearts with the Knave of Hearts and Hansel and Gretel. That's going from we've gone from NieR Automata, NieR Replicant Guest Souls. And I think the Knave of Hearts, the Jack of Hearts, is kind of mid branch A, maybe because it's just before the time skip.
It is, yes.
Yes. So we go from the Jack of Hearts to Hansel and Gretel, who are basically early game bosses. I think
Very first, almost, yeah.
Very first, yes. And then we go to the Red Girl, which has, it's kind of a break in the tendency, but at the same time, it's not. And then we go to the final boss, which is Drakengard, basically.
So
it's kind of a downward. We're going up, and we're going to the most recent of the franchise game, but at the same time, we're going backwards in time.
We are, yes. With the Knave of Hearts and both the Hansel and Gretel, they actually are in the most recent game released, the NieR Replicant version 1.5, so on and so on and so on and so on.
When the raid was released, NieR Replicant was still yet released. So
right.
They were actually going back in time, and well, of course, with the final boss, it's like round zero. That's actually.
Right. So since we've pretty much covered the, I don't want to go too into Tower Paradigms Breach because there's a lot of stuff there that
and it's still going on.
That's not only still going on, but like we're going to cover it in the second half of the show because there's a lot of good things, meaty things that we'll talk about. So let's move on to the Red Girl and the Machine Network. So the Red Girl has been a staple in the games. She is known as the Machine Collective or the Machine Consciousness, the Machine Ego, if you will. She is if I remember correct, the Red Watch or the Watchers. She's part of the Cult of the Watchers. Meowth, you want to go into this a little bit?
Yeah. Well, the Red Girl has been kind of in Automata. Not many people made the connection. She's kind of a girl in red. It's fine. Because she also has black hair. Another clue tying her to 2P. But anyway, but the way this kind of girl in red, it's actually a reference to both to two Drakengard titles. It is a reference to Mana. She was the high priestess of the Cult of the Watchers, which is, well, the main antagonist organization in Drakengard 1, as to well, it's quite simplified because that's
Basically, just to simplify it, Drakengard 1, Cult of the Watchers was the primary antagonist, the people you fought.
Mm-hmm. And then it's later Drakengard 3, which is a prequel to Drakengard 1, that the Cult of the Watchers was founded by one's brother, which he's a male, but looks actually like a female because reasons, and that's ending A of Drakengard 3. So if the Cult of the Watchers exists as of now, and that's the timeline they follow, because that's ending A leads to Drakengard 1, which leads to NieR, which leads to NieR Automata. Well, you know.
I wanna kind of gloss over ending A of Drakengard 3. So following Zero's successful fight with 1, she wanted to deliver the finishing blow up until 1 summons Gabriel into the fray. With Mikhail and 2, Zero defeats Gabriel with much ease until Mikhail collapses from the overexhaustion, and Zero realizes her desire in her folly in desiring victory as she looks back on the exhausted Mikhail having died after the engagement basically. An upset Zero walks towards 1, who has just finished saying her goodbyes to Gabriel. 1 tells Zero that she will go on ahead, ultimately meeting her end by Zero's hand. Following the completion of her mission, Zero takes a moment and is subsequently impaled in the abdomen. Blood flushes out of Zero's body and it covers an individual who resembles 1 in appearance, albeit in masculine form, and he tells her that he is 1's younger brother and that he was created for the sole intent of eliminating Zero should 1 be the one to die from their duel. So it's a kind of like a backstab, reverse backstab.
Yes.
Type thing. That's ending A.
And that's the birth of the Cult of the Watchers.
It is.
Which one's brother establishes to honor 1. Actually, considering 1, she's an intoner like Zero, and the intoners in Drakengard 3. I think that actually ties very well with why the Cult of the Watchers worships what they worship.
Now, to go over what an intoner is, you can consider it to be kind of like a goddess, almost. They were revered as goddesses as such. There were 5 of them, and Zero also. I think Zero was the extra. There were 6 basically, 5. And they were named 1 through 5, and then 0 was the 6th. I believe is what it was, right?
Yes.
Okay. But I just wanted to explain intoners. Go ahead.
Oh, you want me to explain intoners? Oh, okay.
No, it's fine. No, I just wanted to explain what an intoner is.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're basically revered as goddesses.
Yes.
Gods or goddesses.
Through the power of song.
Through the power of song. And that is actually a very prominent theme in the NieR and Drakengard universe as well.
Yes.
Back to the Cult of the Watchers.
Yes. So the Red Girl, I think back in Automata, from what I remember, there were 2. One of them killed the other. That's right. Yes. So that's
yes.
And they were they called themselves the Watchers. Of course, to anyone who may have played Drakengard, that should have really touched some nerves, But many people actually play out Automata without Drakengard or even NieR Gestalt in that moment context. Even so, in NieR Gestalt, there was hardly any mention to the Watchers and stuff. So, to anyone who played Drakengard, the mention of the Red Girls, because there were two, saying we are the Watchers, and it's like, oh. But at the moment, because they were kind of the machine network system and stuff, you wouldn't exactly you would think it's Yoko Taro being cheeky and trolling you with references. And I admit that was my thought. I was like, oh, that's Yoko Taro trolling. And then comes Your Hair Dark Apocalypse, and it turns out it's so much as trolling as actually being a thing.
You don't think that that's the Red Girls, that you don't want it to be the Cult of the Watchers or just the Watchers again. You don't want to see them again, and yet they appear again, and yet they're here to basically ruin your day yet again.
Basically, yes. So yes, and the fact that they're inside the machine network, I mean, the machine network, from what I recall, was made by the machines trying to gather information on mankind. As we have said in NieR, mankind is extinct, but there's still data from this is from NieR Replicant Gestalt, but there's still data about all of mankind through Project Gestalt.
There is, yes.
And it's actually stored in databases. So for the machine life forms, it actually should have been rather easy to infiltrate and hack the Project Gestalt databases. And we've actually kind of seen support this theory in the new release of NieR Replicant, which I shortly ago I showed Ayumi read.
Yes.
But yeah, basically, and there's this thing that I think it may lead us to the next topic, that because mankind at that point, they already had Project Gestalt was made because mankind needed to put their souls into bodies that they were not infected by white coronation syndrome. Am I right?
The WCS.
Right? Exactly. But that means the moment Project Gestalt began storing data, they were already in contact either with the mass particles, that is basically the source of magic in Earth because of things happening in Drakengard ending A, or the white coronation syndrome. Which means if the machine network tried to replicate mankind from that, let's say there was a seed of calamity in waiting in that.
So
yeah.
Let me go over what the white coronation syndrome is, basically.
The floor is yours.
So the white coronation syndrome is basically like what Meow said. It's the remnants, the traces of magic left behind by the battle between the Queen Beast and Angelus. When the Queen Beast was annihilated, when she was defeated, she basically fell to ash upon the city of Tokyo, and basically impaling herself on the Tokyo spire. And those that breathed in that ash were given basically a kind of a choice, basically, on whether or not to make a pact and be with the god herself and become a white beast known as the Legion, or turn into a pillar of salt. Oh, I hear you sighing.
Tough choices.
The thing about the salt too is that even by breathing in that salt, it's still part of magic. It's still magic. It's still part of the magic particles. Now, when you go and look at the opening's cutscene to NieR Replicant and Gestalt, you see a city blanketed in snow. What appears to be snow. That is not snow. That is salt. A lot of people rejected the idea of becoming the queen's lackeys, so they turned to salt. So all that is that's falling is salt, is dead bodies, and inhaling such a thing turns you in. It gives you that choice: either you turn to ash, turn to salt, or you turn into a beast.
Yeah, it's kind of this never-ending cycle. As the more people reject the choice, they're going to turn to salt, they're going to degrade, and it's going to more people are going to breathe into that, and they're going to be contaminated, and just like that, the white chlorination syndrome spread throughout Earth, and mankind was in verge of extinction.
Yes.
And that's why Project Gestalt was made. They needed new bodies that would be clean of this thing to put their souls into.
Yes.
And these new bodies, they were the replicants, made through the data stored of the person in question.
And it was a complicated and convoluted idea. It seemed like it worked on paper, but in reality, there were so many flaws with it. And in the end, the machine life forms and the aliens found a way to exploit it. So
I'm going to save this for later, but I think you've just pointed out that there was a lot of flaws. There was kind of a rush plan, Project Gestalt, but it was needed because if not, mankind would suffer extinction. That's actually something to reserve for next block.
For next block, yes. So let's go into, well, I think have we covered the Grotesque Queen yet?
I think it would be related to the flower and what the Watchers are.
Okay, so that goes on to our next part, the flower and the Watchers. So we covered a little bit about the Watchers earlier. We haven't covered what the flower means. So this one I leave to you.
Okay, well, the flower comes from mostly the origin of the flower, kind of unknown. We would assume it's kind of unknown because it's not been actually rather spelled out in the games as well. We only know that the flower means bad things, basically, and that it may be the origin of the Watchers. The thing is, the flower is evil entity bent on destroying the world. Its natural enemies are dragons. Only dragons can destroy the flower and everything that comes with that the flower produces. And the flower actually took a dying woman. Well, I think she was she made a pact of sorts, or or the flower self-inserted into this recently dead woman that was later known as Zero, as a host to grow and destroy the world. Of the world where Drakengard happens to takes place, and then Zero, of course, tried to rip out the flower out of her eye, and the flower created 5 more copies of her in self-defense. So actually Zero kind of made it worse than it was already, and then she tried to solve the thing. And
those 5 copies became her sisters.
Her sisters that are actually as Zero actually explains, she's a corpse animated by the flower, and her sisters are basically corpses animated by the flowers, the power of the flower. And all of them have the power of song. They invoke their powers and can summon what they call demons. Not demons exactly. It's spelled with an A, like AE. It's not
Yes.
just differentiate with the help of their disciples. Um, that's another whole another kind of terms, but still. Excuse me. And then, there's different things that may happen here. In branch D of Drakengard 3, the flower is destroyed when Zero kills all of her sisters, and the flower blooms into, well, a Grotesque Queen, or actually kind of 6 Grotesque Queens above the cathedral city, and Mikhail has to destroy them. And he does, and basically the end of that branch is that the flower and intoners are sealed in a different dimension and they're safe. But we know that that's not actually, as of now, the NieR plotline doesn't follow that branch. And when Zero in branch A killed one, and one's brother killed her, before the Zero had the flower to bloom, that kind of, well, yeah, it kind of allowed the flower to keep. We don't know exactly which one, but, well, there's, and basically it wouldn't be surprising of Drakengard 3 the flowers survived and started sprouting watchers.
I would not be surprised either. Not at all. The flower is also a recurring theme in the series, not just in Drakengard, but in NieR as well.
And and of course in the raid series, because
In the raid series as well, yes.
Lo and behold, what was my surprise, catharsis and utter panic when I saw the final boss being named
Here in Fluorescence, she's covered in lunar
like,
tears, and yeah.
I was like, oh fuck. I mean, can I go now? I don't want to be here.
You and me both, so.
I mean, we're fighting the fucking flower.
We are.
Of course, for people who doesn't know the story of Drakengard, it's like, well, that's a nice name. She's covered in flowers. That's nice. I was like, if I jump from this tower down, I mean, I think my death will be more pleasant than the one awaiting me if I sit here.
I mean, if you don't die, you'll at least get the choice between, serving her or turning into a pillar of salt, because the Mesa is still kind of sifting down below, which we will get into later as well. Actually, why don't we go ahead and move into the second block, because we're about to go into some 14 and NieR and Drakengard weaving here too.
To bridge the thing between the first block that was just Drakengard and NieR, well, most only Drakengard and NieR, lore implications. First, it's that in 14 there's still ongoing the weekly quest of the Yorha Dark Apocalypse series, and each week we get more data regarding Konok and what's going on. Okay, and this last week we got an interesting piece of information there. But we already from the kind of the start of at the ending of the raid, we reveal that what they call the white sphere is actually a portal between. It's actually more complicated than that, but fair
Incredibly
enough.
complicated.
So yes, and just say we're just going to say that right now it was kind of cute having Connacht running around trying to search for answers. Right now, I think he's meddling with that he shouldn't.
And that's where the seed of resurrection comes into play. So the seed of resurrection itself is a throwback from the original Drakengard. It is a sphere. It is supposedly something left behind by the gods themselves. As it oh gosh, it was. Did they almost leave it behind as like an almost like not even a punishment? They just left it behind just because it's like kind of like a laugh. I think is what I read it as. Just this, the gods wanted to make things more interesting, so they left the seeds of resurrection scattered. We'll have to look into that later. But the seed of resurrection, the purpose of that. The purpose of that actually being on the first is we don't know if it was placed there by someone or it had existed long beforehand, because during the quest with Anog and Konog, we are unaware of how long that Anog's been dead. There's no specific timeline. We meet up with them, of course, and that we get that echo vision of the past. So as far as we know, that seed could have been there for a very, very long time. As you also know, from Drakengard 1, like I mentioned earlier, the seeds of resurrection are very bad. The last time someone messed with it, they shoved a dead corpse into the seed of resurrection, and out popped a dark demigod, hellbent on destroying the world. I'm gonna put it lightly.
But yeah, it's not pretty well, whatever. Yeah, I would actually say that it could well have been the seed of resurrection around ever since the flood of light in Colusia, but simply because the flood of light caught the ladder, the higher part of Colusia from the lower part of Colusia, and of course created a situation of conflict. And this part of Colusia, where the Copied Factory and the Puppet's Bunker are, then no one would have discovered it. So it's kind of, I mean, I know the Puppet's Bunker kind of was hidden underneath the mountains, from what we understand in the quest line. Anog asks aloud, "Where's the mountain?" And then there's the Puppet's Bunker, the Puppet's bunker there. But the Copied Factory is implied to have been around longer than that. And no one realized that there's this goddamn factory in one of the mountain sides of Colusia, because for further insult, in a sense, it's actually not entirely concealed with a mountain on top. It's there are some parts of the factory that are, exterior. You get the sunlight, and no one actually realized this thing was there, when it's, of course, obviously not belonging. So that's why I believe that the seed of resurrection either happened during the flood, or maybe not necessarily when Anog was copied, but I mean, not from a so long a time that no one had discovered the copied factory. You know,
Of course.
if I'm making sense.
No, it's making sense. So, going on to Anog and Konog's situation.
Yes.
So what had, like I said earlier, what had happened was during a cave-in, Anog had died, saving Konog, and Anog had ironically died right next to the Seed of Resurrection. The Seed of Resurrection made a copy of Anog, and that is what we are running around with now, as far as how the story is going right now. Konog, after finding that out, was upset, and Konog then went with the android to the other side of the portal. Supposedly in search of Anog, or he just willingly went to the other side to help close the portal?
I think it's a combination of the two of both.
Because knowing, both of us knowing that what the Seed of Resurrection does, there's no bringing a person back from death near it. We've known this before. We've known what happens with death near the Seed of Resurrection before. So Konog currently is just basically kind of sending us letters every now and then, every week, just giving us updates on what he's found, as far as his search goes. Right now, he's, like you said, meddling with things that should not be touched.
Yes.
Do you have things to add?
Yeah. I mean, without the proper context, because we don't know, for example, which new piece of information we're going to get next week, it's kind of difficult to say where this is going. But knowing Yoko Taro's hatred for twins, I mean, not hatred, it's just that no twin couple in his work gets a happy ending. So
it's ironic because the twins get red hair too.
Yeah.
What other twins in the NieR universe get red hair? Let's think.
I think they have a very pretty song, the Song of the Ancients.
Something like that. His name started with a D or a P, something like that.
Yeah. Can't remember actually.
Right.
Yes. So the thing is, Konog is going on his search, and it could be. Maybe I'm actually between going horribly wrong and laying the grounds for Yoko Taro advertising or teasing new titles, the new titles that he said that he's working in. To be entirely honest.
I think that's a thing too. Moving on to the next part, though, I do want to go over. This is a big one because I'm going to start going into the songs. So I'm going to pull up the song.
Do you have my file? Do you have my file there, or?
I do.
Okay.
And I have this.
First and foremost, this was my reading, and it could be entirely completely wrong, but this is an interpretation. This is my narrative reading of well, you explain it, Ayumi. Actually, it was your idea.
It was my idea, but I mean, okay, let's see. You put it under. No, it was with lore theory crafting. Nope, that was.
If you need, I can link it.
Yeah, I may need to.
Okay. Give me a moment. Then you can in the meantime introduce the thing.
Yeah, because I had the other one pulled up. So the I'm gonna go ahead and pull up the song list then, instead, and start talking about that. So there's a good number of songs that you get from the raid series that, kind of in a certain order, are a bit suspect of how you got them and what order they put them in. So to begin with, we're going to go over the songs that appear in the raid, not the ones that you get outside the raid, but the ones that you start hearing in the raid. There are not going to be doubles or repeats, just the ones when they pop up. They go as follows: Alien Manifestation, Song of the Ancients, Atonement, Bipolar Nightmare, Weight of the World, Prelude, Grandma, Destruction, Fortress of Lies, End of the Unknown, Torn from the Heavens, the Dark Colossus Strikes Again, Emil, Despair, Mourning, The Sound of the End, Possessed by a Disease, and Kind Salvation, Final Fantasy main theme. When arranged in that order, it makes it highly suspicious that it spells out almost like Final Fantasy XIV's narrative, like the entire history of it, up to this day. And it makes you wonder whether this was a by design or not. What do you have to say?
This was kind of I kind of vividly remember this day that you gave me the list in order of the soundtrack, and I was like, I'm kind of feeling a theme here, and I kind of spent like the next 2 hours making sure. And I was like, okay, let me write down this real quick, between quotes, and I was like, okay, that's the context, and then I made this file, and I sent it to Ayumi and said, tell me what you think. And this could be entirely wrong, but there were many things that I was actually seeing there in just a list of songs that I was like, is it this? Has Yoko Taro kind of
Been keeping track?
Not just that, just telling the whole 14 storyline in the soundtrack of the NieR raid series, and maybe hinting about things to come in and Walker. I mean, it was kind of. I mean, I have to say, it's not that far-fetched,
No,
because,
it is not.
I always say, some people usually hand wave or take away relevance to the creative process. You have to keep in mind that whenever you say, well, but this could be, you point out, this is a body language, or this is an angle, or like stuff like that, and it's like, and some people would say, that's that they couldn't have thought that far out, that much into it, and you're like, if you study it, not just I mean, cinema arts, the visual arts, the visual rhetorics, I have just for saying, just I mean, I know what I'm talking about. Nothing in the visual arts is put there by coincidence. Everything means something, because the visual arts is not like literature. In literature, you have the narrator, be it first person, be it third person. They're telling you how the character feels, how the events are unfolding, stuff like that. But you don't have that in visual arts. You rely in other tricks, and visuals is one of them, and the soundtrack is another one. So that's why things like this, when people if people tells you you're digging too much into it, you have to say no. In video games, they are visual art. Nothing is put in there by coincidence, and that's my that's my statement of the day.
Yeah, that was a big one. All right, so I'm going to go over what you wrote, just kind of in a short summary.
Go ahead.
So, Alien Manifestation. Let's begin with that one. For those of you who have played Final Fantasy XIV up to current content, we'll say at least 5.4. At least 5.4. There will be themes and elements here that you may recognize. For those of you who haven't played up to 5.2, 5.1, 5.0, this is your spoiler warning right now. Leave or close your ears or mute, whatever. 3 seconds. 2, 1. We'll begin with Alien Manifestation. Whether the sound is an inimical illness of the star or an external pathogen of sorts, this seems to be a hint at the beginning of the final days. A threat beneath the ground. If the sound was caused by an external pathogen, we may be looking at the source of the NieR-verse's woes, the Grotesque Queen coming from the Drakengard-verse, a creature that destroys by the final song, a form of sound. Moving to the Song of the Ancients, Atonement. It's a theme associated with the twins. The original having been charged with overseeing mankind. The atonement arrangement.
Speaking of Devola and Popola.
Devola and Popola, yep. Yeah. The atonement arrangement way towards. And by the way, there are many different versions of this song. By the way, yes. There's Fate. There's Popola and Devola's version. There's the atonement, which I'm talking about. But we're going to talk about atonement right now because that's the one that was included. The atonement arrangement may point towards the final desperate and suicidal attempt of the twins to allow 9S to hack into the White Ark. This could also reference Zodiark's advent through a sacrifice at a chance of hope. And Devola and Popola's status as twins might hint toward Emet-Selch and Azim, kind of like a Gemini symbolism.
Yeah.
Bipolar Nightmare, we'll move on to that one. The first battle of NieR Automata featuring Engels, and the last featuring A2 and 9S. Like Heidelin, 2B was made to destroy 9S whenever he learned too much and became a threat for the false Yorha operations. And A2 bears her memory. The title itself may be pointing to the dual opposing nature of Heidelin and Zodiark, this being the duel in the timeline. At the same time, though, perhaps reversed, one of them holds on to hope for the future and swore to uphold someone else's legacy, while the other has lost all trace of hope and shown signs of the red eye virus. The logic virus, as we call it.
Yeah, I mean, it was already present in Drakengard 1 anyway. It means basically bad news, and it's related to the Cult of the Watchers.
It is. The Weight of the World Prelude. Mixed with the Final Fantasy Prelude, this can be seen as something as the end of the world and a proper start of our story era, which would be the Sundering. Considering Weight of the World's lyrics, this may have something to do with Azim, but from another point of view, it could be read as Emet-Selch as well. In the end, opposite sides, they'd be shouldering the weight of the world.
I have, if I may point something out from this one, I said this one was kind of rather easy to pinpoint because the prelude in Final Fantasy games usually plays when you start the game. So pinpointing this as the start of the Final Fantasy current era of after the Sundering, it was kind of one of these lodestone points when I was making this reading. I'm going to shut up. Okay.
Grandma Destruction is originally from NieR Gestalt and Replicant, and it's related to memory. In the context, Azim has lost entirely their memories about themselves and the convocation, just like Kyne loses memories of her comrades in ending E.
Well, actually, I should actually say that ending D. Because ending E was the one. It was.
I was going to say, yeah, I read that and I'm like,
Sorry.
That's okay. At the same time, to not forget, Emitel creates in secret Asm's crystal from his memories of them. However, memory is latent in each and every sundered soul and can be awakened to various degrees.
Which is what we see in the proper ending of Replicant.
Yeah. I'm not going to spoil that, though, because I watched that and there are things.
I mean, with differences, you know?
With differences. I'd better not see things pop up from those petals.
Oh, God.
Fortress of Lies, the Bunkers theme. And Yorha operates on the lie that mankind is still alive on the moon. While the truth is they have been gone from this, from even before the aliens invaded Earth, and what is left on the moon is remnants from humanity. In the remote case, they can be remade. This is being Yorha's greatest secret, for which the countless androids have fought and died. They kill anyone who gets slightly close to the truth. Glory to mankind. Likewise.
Also, aside from Ayumi's going to say after this, hello, Dragons on War.
Right. Likewise, Heidelin and her followers spread lies about Zodiark and Asians and manipulated history so that no one would ever know of the ancients and the unsundered star. End of the unknown. Adam and Eve's battle in the alien ship, where 2B and 9S learned that the aliens have been dead for a long time, killed by their own machine life forms. This marks the point in NieR Automata where the secrets of Yorha and the mankind begin unraveling. In the context, this could be known as the beginning of the Warrior of Light's tale in A Realm Reborn, the beginning of the end of the unknown. Torn from the heavens, the Dark Colossus strikes again. The Dark Colossus is the Jack of Hearts, or the Knave of Hearts, who appears in 14 as a massive shade that led a horde of shades trying to reclaim their replicants. It is sealed in stone for years by a petrified Kaine. In NieR Automata, the track is used for the massive machine life form Kierkegaard. There we go. An innocent childlike creature who was too powerful and hence banished to the depths of the sea, but still harbors the instinct to reunite with its kin. This seems to point towards Zodiark, also the only entity that could be torn from the heavens as of now, and the Dark Colossus may have struck in the form of the vision of the Warrior of Light of him at the end of 2.0.
When we say him, we're referring to Zodiark. It's easier to get that in written because I always read capital H when it's Zodiark and Heidelin, but when read, we're referring to Zodiark.
Right. Emil, Despair. Emil and his sister were experiments to turn into the ultimate weapon against the legions. Ultimate Weapon is a very good song, by the way. White angel-like monsters afflicted with the white chlorination syndrome that made a pact with the Watchers. This seems to bring us to Shadowbringers in the fight, the Warrior of Light, Warrior of Darkness.
The wall.
The wall. Wald. Wages against the Light and the Sin Eaters. The choice of version being Emil Despair from Automata may point towards the Wald.
The Warrior of Light.
I'm just going to use Wall and Waldi.
Okay, sorry.
At the time, state Asm, Emil felt a despair after ages of cloning himself and fighting endless wars to the point he lost his sense of self. His friends forgotten and an unwinnable battle. Like the Wall when Waldi's many reincarnations, probably a number of them used by Heidelin to fight the rejoinings in which the end would always happen, fighting their own friends unknowingly. Own past friends unknowingly.
Also, it's kind of related to Green in a sense.
So the other Emil tracks are also called Sacrifice and Fate, I believe, is the other version of Emil. So there's 3 versions of Emil: Despair, Sacrifice, and Fate. Despair is the final one they use for Automata, with him just realizing that he's coming to that revelation that he's been fighting for so long, and it's almost been pointless. Moving on to Morning. In the White Ark's theme in NieR Automata, a tower emerges from beneath the ground where the purpose of shooting down the moon and the remnants of humanity are preserved there. As of now, this seems to closely align with the Teletowers introduced in 5.4, and for what we know, their aim may well be Zodiark, who is still bound inside the moon.
This part onwards is mostly speculation on 5.5, so it could be even less accurate than it may be already.
By the way, for those that would like a nice little surprise, another thing is speculation. Go inside the Yorha bunker, Puppet's bunker, go to the command control room, and look at the screen. You'll find that the moon base is online. The Sound of the End, the beginning of Branch C in NieR Automata, where the red-eye virus, the logic virus, begins to spread throughout the whole ranks of Yorha, turning them into mindless killing machines with no will of their own. As of now, the events seem to align with the tempering of the Teletowers induced to those who hear the apparent sound they emit.
Which we haven't heard as of now yet.
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 Possessed by a disease, Soshi's battle theme fought in the facility of the god-adoring machine life forms. And treading to possible Endwalker territory now, the disease is that the sound and tempers people may be watching to fuel a primal for the reenactment of the final days. This theme resembles one's song from Drakengard 3, and considering she is to whom one's brother dedicated the Cult of the Watchers, it could be bringing us back to the external pathogen that may be the Grotesque Queen and the sound both. And finally, Kaine, the Final Fantasy theme version. It's a rearrangement of the Kaine Salvation in 14, and it plays as her Inflorescence, an incarnation of the flower of Drakengard 3, and that was the source of the Grotesque Queen's descends from the sky. She resembles 2P and the Red Girl joined together. This combination could hint about a fusion being to what will try and destroy the world in Endwalker, but could also hint to at some form of salvation at the end of 6.0, regarding perhaps a sacrifice in the manner of NieR towards Kaine, or a mercy kill of sorts. The fan translation of the Chaos language lyrics may point towards a certain direction.
Do you want me to elaborate on the certain direction?
Go ahead.
Nah, it's just when I'm being because I don't want people to point at me and say I'm obsessed with Emma Silkbar Hades' figure. But when you linked to me the translation of those lyrics, I was kind of thinking, God.
Yep.
you know those, right? So
yes.
It was like, this is giving me too many Hades' wives. I just like that's why the kind I mean I don't want to think of that possibility, because that's the sacrifice bar mercy kill that once we're done I'm going to go. But it's actually a real possibility regarding Hades. I don't want that, but it may happen. So that's why I included this speculation here in Kaine's situation.
Yeah, and I'm gonna actually going to read off the fan translation too. I have it here. So the Kind Salvation and Kind Escape, they both share the same lyrics. One is just a little bit faster than the other. Kind Salvation, to start, I'll just use that one as an example. But the fan translation goes something like, to walk with someone beloved, our fanciful design. To burn with desire and fury, curse beyond tears these feelings of despair. I know I'm abrasive and moody, but don't stop caring. No, this bad attitude's misperceived, or is the false front becoming? I know I'm abrasive and moody, but don't stop caring. No, the bad attitude's misperceived, or is time's warm impossibility fit to be called compassion?
Yeah, so let's be honest. Is it not reminding of Hades, or it's just me going crazy?
You're going crazy, but yeah, that could
Fair.
that could be it too.
I have to. I have no counter to that.
But and see, that's what makes me really emotional about the song too, is because when you've played the games and know who Kaine is, through and through, that song that the lyrics, even the fan made lyrics match her so well, and you're like, you can't stop feeling bad for her.
Yes, I mean, Kaine is a really interesting character. I mean, I actually, I'm sad to admit that I'm not as knowledgeable in Kaine as I would wish to, but that's what Ayumi is for.
I was destroyed when that theme played. I still get destroyed when that theme plays. It's
I do remember your reaction to hearing just a part of that in the live letter.
yes.
I'm not laughing because it's funny in a good way, because you actually have to leave the
because I had to mute myself.
Yeah, you have to mute yourself. Like, I'm not going to lie. When I got to Florence, I was like, there was a small part of me when Kindness themes began playing, and then got the Final Fantasy theme there in mixed, and was like, oh god, Ayumi's going to lose it.
I mean, I've gotten a little bit better, but the first 5 times I ran it, yeah, I died.
Yeah. So yeah, we're moving on.
Moving on.
There's the whole thing that I mentioned before, that hey, the NieR rates don't fit in the 14 universe. Well, here's our rebuttal. Do you want to go first?
Go ahead.
I can go ahead. Okay. Yeah, I mean, of course, this is a crossover, and crossovers are meant to, well, be the product of 2 franchises, or more. I mean, I'm going to make it even more plain. If this crossover doesn't fit, then what the hell is Kingdom Hearts?
That's a good point.
I mean, that should actually silence anyone complaining about crossovers being a success or not, or making sense for that matter. But anyways, the thing is that this is something interesting that Yoko Taro and just Kasaito did, and probably they would have spoiled the whole 14 storyline by Yoshi P, because if not, I can't possibly fathom how the hell these 2 beautiful men managed to intertwine the NieR and Drakengard themes into the 14 narrative so well that you are actually delving into the raid stories and the scenery and the themes and stuff and all that thing, and you are actually seeing matching. Like, for example, it's like when we got in the sound, I mean the music track and the reading I did, we're finding matching things. Like, for example, the sound. The sound, how that's the thing. The watchers actually employ sound. Their way of the storying things is a fucking song.
Yep.
I mean, and there's that, and there's this thing about memory that we see a lot. Well, memory is the staple of Shadowbringers after all. But then there's the thing about transferring memories to others, which is actually the point of Project Gestalt, NieR, if I recall correctly. It's just that it went wrong. And actually, now you reminded me of the thing of Project Gestalt was a desperate last ditch at saving mankind. That sounds pretty much what like what Zodiac summoning was.
Yes.
I was like, oh yeah, I didn't think about this, and it actually fits too much, and it's like, what the hell what the hell, Yoko Taro? And then there's this thing to culminate in the end. Bar Tokyo, bar the Cathedral City, which may well be the one and the same actually, and then you got there and you're reminded of the city, cityscape, and you're like, are you actually trying to make me remember this landscape? I mean, it's of course not the same, but there's the same vibe.
There is that same vibe, yes.
And there's the thing with the portal in the sky coming to mess around. And I actually remember it now, I was looking at it, like, oh. Which is, I mean, this time it wasn't meteors, it was actually something worse, but it's kind of like the same vibe. And there are other many things, like for example, one of the final quests of the dwarves wanting someone to blame, and it's basically, why do you have to blame when we can work together? Why anyone has to pay, which is actually something quite NieR like, especially NieR Automata like, but it's actually fitting. This is 5.5 in the narrative we're going towards now in 14. And yeah, I mean, the Puppets Bunker also was released in 5.3, and that's when we kind of Puppets Bunker was interesting because it came from after Revelation in 5.2, Heidelin's employment methods, and then in 5. This is 5.2, and then 5.3 was what a coincidence that the white garb androids come in the same patch in which we face the light specters in the Hero's Gauntlet,
That's true.
And then there's the Copied Factory, in which just a patch before we fought someone that you actually described it well. Wasn't 9S supposed to be on our side? Why are we fighting him? And turns out he was our ally all along, because the traitorous one was 2P. Just a patch earlier, we fought someone. This is 5.0. Someone who was supposed to be our friend, and
turned out to be true.
You get what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
It's a very well put, all the while, and this is actually hard to do, because you're actually adapting a sequel crossover to the narrative of the game, and you see that even that there's this coincidence of themes in the patches. I mean, patch 0.0 comes patch 0.1, and there's this thing that actually it was patch 5.1 that gave us Hades Sociology, right? That's Hades X. So
that was, yes.
So those who were going to those who were going to run Hades, they were going to be reminded of the thing that would happen with 9S. So there's this thing that it's actually made to give us this vibe, but at the same time, it's different enough so casual players wouldn't actually notice. But even if you're a casual player and you don't notice, there's the subconscious playing in here that in how to make it simple. It's not something that you're going to acknowledge consciously, but your subconscious is going to link this thing to thing and say it fits, and you won't feel like it's out of place. And in this case, the narrative does it so well. I'm 99% sure it's done painfully on purpose. What do you think?
I think it's done. I will agree with you there that it is done on purpose, and I actually want to throw out my 2 cents too. And as far as what kind of themes kind of tie into 14 and what they mean. So I want to start back with Copied Factory and what we saw in there. So the thing that had me going red light the most in Copied Factory was when we defeated the second boss and we were on our way outside. And we got outside, and you see all this snow, flour, all this on the ground. Now, to most people, that's just what it is. It's dust covering the ground. It looks like it's snowing. For people who have played Drakengard and NieR, you want to go back inside immediately.
Yes.
For me, that was why is Meso on the first? And who all has breathed it in so far besides the dwarves that just emerged? And what all does this mean going forward? So from there, just from that incident alone, that gave me kind of red flags as to where this raid series was going to take. Moving on to the next part of the raid series, the Puppet's Bunker. The fact that we had black and white color schemes also threw up some red flags for me. And the fact that at the end, the puppets kind of formed into a ball. Oh yeah, and also the fact this is something I discovered later, but being reminded of it still kind of brings up another interesting thing. So the very first boss at the beginning of the Puppet's Bunker, I forget the name of it, but it looks like an upside down flower.
It's a very long name. Basically the Aegis unit. It's meant to be like one of these flying units the Yorha androids have, but it works like a shield of sorts. But in the end, yeah, it's flower shaped.
It's an upside down flower meant basically to be a reference back to Zero and the flowers, the flower theme that comes from Drakengard.
Yeah, if I may, just a moment. Actually, that damn thing was the first big red alarm for me when the dialogue on screen said, preparing program life's last song.
Yes, and then there's that, and then we have the angelic text kind of coming out and those very small places that you need to hide between. I was ready for another mini game, ready for another rhythm game.
I mean, being entirely honest, that I thought it could be the only reference to Drakengard we might get at that point. And then I was glad to see that Square Enix one-upped my expectations, because if you remember in my bingo card 5.5, there was Grotesque Queen. for NieR's final raid.
There was,
and
yeah.
then they amp the thing to a 1000th level when it was not just a Grotesque Queen, it was the flower itself.
It was. And then, of course, going to the end of the puppets bunker, we see the puppets form a ball, which was like, oh, great. And then we go on to the Tower of Paradigm's Breach, where just all kinds of things were going off. The worst one being at the end, where there's a portal in the sky. And there's the Seed of Destruction at the end. It's pretty much a bone casket at this point because the false idol pops out of it. Similarities we'll get to another time, not in this stream, but another time. And then we get transported to the ending of Drakengard 3. At that point, it was all but confirmed that this raid was going on the whole. We want to not only bring up old memories, but we want to show you kind of what would happen if you would fail in defeating this.
Yes. And I have to say, when I first made, when I timeline going backward, I have to say, in Paradigm's Bridge, I can't speak. We go from the naval hearts to Hanson, and then we have girl, and then we have Flora. And there's the thing, the red girl, if it's the consciousness of the Grotesque Queen, because it's actually trying to resummon the flower, which is Florence. So we go from NieR replicant, first early NieR replicant, Drakengard 1, if the red girl is actually consciousness born from the Grotesque Queen there. And then we go to Drakengard 3, which is a prequel to Drakengard 1, so the flower would be older than the red girl in a sense. So it's kind of interesting. It's like, because usually people forget that because it's Drakengard 3, they think it's more recent, but it's actually a prequel.
It is. I want to close out today's segment by saying that just a few theories. One is that I believe the WCS that we see, the Mesa that we see on the first, will have a much larger impact than we think. And I think that it, like you said, that the Seed of Resurrection, Seed of Destruction has been there since the Flood. I think it was put there intentionally. I think that the Legion, the beast that that you get turned into when you breathe in the Meso, have similarities and draw comparisons to the Sin Eaters on the first. And they are not unlike them.
Yeah, for the people of the first, it would have been nigh impossible to distinguish one.
The Sin Eaters themselves are white beasts. As for red eyes, I think they have black eyes, the Sin Eaters do. But it's not unfeasible for them to have red eyes as well. So this could very well have been by design of the Watchers, and they just happened to come in at a very good time when the first was experiencing a cataclysm.
Yeah, and dropping the Seed of Resurrection, bar destruction in the first, two reasons I actually see as a kind of a genius move. The first doesn't have dragons. I mean, I don't mean that the dragons in the 14 verse are the same as the Drakengard-verse that basically have the instinct of destroying the flower and everything related to it. But the Watchers couldn't possibly know that, so for them it was a safer bet to put the thing in a place that has no dragons. And second, if it was put during the Flood of Light, that means it was from a rejoining aspect and world stability. That's when the world is kind of, is when this fracture between the source and the, so it's more prone to to dimensional instability. And if the Watchers, because the Seed of Resurrection is a portal between, if they wanted to put the Seed of Resurrection there, then being that close to rejoining, it was the perfect moment.
It was the perfect moment. So that's all the time we have for today. We've gone pretty much our full 2 hours. Huh?
Yeah. No, just another simple note about how the Yoko Taro and Yosuke Saito, the magnificent bastard, tied the whole Shadowbringers to the NieR Drakenier-verse when they had the false idol summoning the flower. We've waited so long to throw these gates wide, and I was like, God. That was like the perfect tie-in with how Shadowbringers began and how it's going to end.
It's gonna be crazy. So thanks all for coming out. Thanks all for watching us ramble about Drakengard and NieR and everything in between. Thanks for listening to us, our wild theories and everything. Be sure to tune in to Lorelines normally. Lorelines XIV, twitch.tv/LorelinesXIV, and also check all of us out here at our channel on YouTube for all of the VODs, and also follow our Twitter at LorelinesXIV as well. I believe is the same one. For all the updates and what we're going to be doing in the next few weeks. I think next week is our live letter, or not live letter, but FanFest podcast.
Yeah, and of course I want to. We will. I think it's possible we can leave in this video later link to the YouTuber that has the NieR Drakengard video analysis.
Yes.
If every one of you wants to get if you haven't played and you can't afford or you don't have the time, go to this YouTuber user Clems that we're going to link in the description later, and he has the whole analysis and very well explained of the Drakengard series and the NieR series.
Yep, and he does it in a way that's very easy to understand with a bit of humor too. So,
Yes.
Thanks for watching, everyone. We will catch you guys this Sunday on Lorelines, where we will be discussing Bosnia. So take care, everyone.
No, we were discussing the second part of our life.
Oh, never mind. Alec. Oh my.
Bosnia is the week after that.
Week after, yes. So yes, second part of Alec this Sunday. Catch us on twitch.tv/LorelinesXIV. Thanks for coming out, guys, and catch you later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.